for people to join, and I think we started recording, so we can just wait a couple of minutes. Just a quick question for those who are here: how many of you were in last week's session when we had some technical difficulties and are now able to rejoin?
I joined the first part, 30 minutes of the initial discussions. This is Jaya here. After that, there was a abrupt closure, so I could not resume the second part of the discussions. Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome back, and thank you for joining again. Apologies for that. All right. I'll give a minute. I'll start sharing my screen. Let's see. Can you let me know how many of you are new or joining for the first time the demo, just so I know how far back to go, because if everyone has heard the first part, then I won't waste your time, but if some of you are new, then we'll go through it again.
Hi, this is Jolly. I'm new.
Okay, Jolly.
Hi, this is Hitesh. I'm new too.
Okay, perfect.
I am Swami, very new.
All right, okay, then we'll do the full version. All right. Okay, so let me put this in presentation mode, and I think we can get started. All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. This is going to be a demo about Game of Pods. The whole purpose of today, there's just a little bit of presentation, but then we're going to go straight into the live walkthrough of the product. There's also space for Q&A, but please feel free to ask questions at any point along the way. Guys, I will ask that if you're not speaking, or can we force unmute everyone? Okay, thank you. All right. So the purpose of today is not to go into the whole Game of Pods model, although I am, of course, I'll be happy to answer any questions around that, but it's to give you a sneak preview of the platform that we are building and share with you the vision that we have for Game of Pods. Like I said, please ask any questions, and there is quite a bit of Q&A time at the end as well. So let's talk a little bit about what this world of Game of Pods looks like and what vision we're expecting. And give me just 1 second, please, because I'm having just one little issue. Sorry. Okay. Nope. There we go. Give me 1 minute. There we go. Perfect. Let's go back. And here we are. Right. It keeps changing. There we go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our vision. So when we're talking about Game of Pods, we're imagining this world where you as a pod member hold all the power. And so imagine this world where you're able to carve out your own path, where you hold the power to define what matters, and where you can express your ideas, your creativity, and your passion. A world where you can shape your own future. And if we think about it today, a lot of the times in our teams, we're kind of going through the motions. And it doesn't really need to be like that. So if we could change the status quo, what would that look like? So imagine you were able to identify with a higher purpose within your team. If you could direct the course of your own journey, you had the autonomy to do that. If you were able to challenge yourself to the verge of your abilities and get to the point where we call it that feeling of flow. You focus, a world where you focus on the challenge that is in front of you, and you get this feeling of triumphing over adversity, which we call fiero. You would also be able to achieve mastery in what you're doing, and you would be able to have that validated not only by your managers but also by your colleagues with 360 real-time feedback. This is what we're envisioning in Game of Pods, and Game of Pods is here to change the status quo. We want to create a world where people are rewarded for their success, but not only that, but also the last-longing effects of their contributions. Where people can create their own personal goals, they can improve their skill sets, and that is reflected in the output of the pod. We can see how we grow as individuals and how that results in the growth of our teams. And so this is what we're building today with this new platform. We're going to do a walkthrough in just a minute. And here is how this ecosystem is going to work. So as an individual, we exist when we work in software development, we exist in 2 dimensions or 2 levels. The first one is your pod, and the second one is you as an individual. Now these 2 are very closely interrelated, and we call them the delivery world and the talent world, but one can't exist without the other, and they feed off of each other. When we think about the pod, at the center of it is what we call the maturity path for that pod. What does that mean? The pods are not static, sorry. What is wrong with my English today? Okay. The pods are not static in time, but they evolve, right? We start, we mature, we grow together, and we evolve. This is the maturity path that the pod transitions through. And how does the pod do that? Well, the pod works in some sort of iteration, regardless of what type of framework you're working with. You either have sprints, or you have releases, or you have milestones. And through those iterations, we are able to target tactical goals. There we go, now it's working. And those tactical goals in Game of Pods are able to earn the pod badges. At the same time, as we go through multiple iterations, we can target strategic goals. Those strategic goals in Game of Pods target trophies. Think of the tactical goals as actions that your pod is able to achieve within a sprint, and strategic goals as milestones that the pod is able to achieve over multiple sprints. How do we get to that? We get to that through measuring. Everything that we do within each iteration is measured, both short-term and long-term, and we're able to create baselines, and we're able to set targets for our team that can be measured over time, and as we reach those targets, we're able to achieve those milestones. At the center of everything that we do is client validation. Nothing that we do is in a vacuum, and everything that we do is to please our clients. The result of that client validation is the product delivery, or the high quality product delivery that our pods achieve. This process is what Game of Pods is here to gamify. Now, at the same time, we've got our individuals, and these individuals transition through a personal journey. Today we have this kind of mapped out, but in a number of tools that are completely separate. So we're tracking quarterly goals in some shape or form. We also have a skills matrix where we can see the profile of our people, but there's nothing that is joining this together and also mapping this and relating this to the actual pods. So in Game of Pods, and this is the vision yet to be developed, so I will show you in the product what is there and what is still pending. But the vision is that we can track these quarterly goals that align with our skills matrix and our willingness to grow, or our projection to grow in those goals. That matrix is not just a theoretical description of my own skill sets, but also the applied version of those skill sets. So what does that mean? So if I have a specific skill, and I may even have a degree or certification in a skill, that is not guaranteeing that I can apply successfully that skill and that I'm good at that skill. So there is a difference between declaring a skill to having that skill validated by my community manager or my project manager, and the application of that skill validating in a project through my project manager or my tech lead, and even endorsed through my peers. So now my profile starts gaining a whole new level of meaning in terms of my skill sets. Additionally, and to help drive those quarterly goals, we have a number of what we call personal trait badges, which have to do with the contributions that we can do to our communities, how we align with the company core values, and how we make our work environment a better place. So when you think about it, the sum of all these skills can give me a much more detailed profile that in turn I get to apply on the projects. The projects benefit from those skills and also feed me and my profile additional skills or a higher level and maturity of the existing skills, which opens the door to new projects and also helps me carve my career path. At the end of the day, it's what we started saying, that these two worlds coexist and one can't live without the other. Okay, so this is the vision. And at the core of this vision is that the strength of each team is each of its members, and the strength of each member is the team itself. One does not survive without the other. So I'll make a quick pause here before we go into the actual platform. What we have today is this delivery world is what we are developing and what you will see in the tool today. This talent world is coming over the next few months, starting development beginning of next year. Yes, am I hearing a question or?
Yeah, can you give us an idea on how many pods are already using it and practicing it over the last, say, 6 months to 12 months?
Yeah, so we have, so this tool, we're presenting it because we're doing a closed beta. So this will be the first launch for this tool. However, Game of Pods as a methodology and podification in general as a methodology has been used by Softvision for the past year and a half. And specifically today, we have in a third-party tool about, let me see the actual numbers, 600 users and about 22, 23 pods currently using specifically Game of Pods. The pod methodology per se is widespread across Softvision.
Okay, thank. Yeah, I'm sure pod methodology is fairly more robust and more commonplace. I'm more particular curious about the usage of this tool and what has been the time on an average spent by the teams in doing this. Not just the awards and the points part. It's more of connecting the actual productivity, baselining, measuring, and then improving. That the process relate more closer to the customer delivery.
Yeah, so what you're saying is correct. At the core of this methodology is the KPI tracking. We track those KPIs in 4 dimensions, and I can give you a quick snapshot of what those dimensions would look like. There you go. So these 4 dimensions are productivity, quality, product impact, and autonomy. These are just some examples. They're not exhaustive that some of the teams tend to use most commonly. We don't determine what each team is supposed to track. We just ask that each team tracks these 4 dimensions. The teams, obviously, together with the client, define what are the metrics that are valuable and significant to their specific project and business at that specific point in time. So any metric that all of our teams have been able to work with always fall into one of these 4 categories. And this is tracked not only as a static metric in time, but also looking at the evolution over time. Like we were saying, we baseline, but then we set targets for the team in that continuous improvement mindset that the teams are then working towards reaching. I was going to say one more thing, but it slipped my mind. I lost my train of thought. Is this answering a little bit your question?
Yeah, to some extent, because when we also try to do something similar, or more fundamental, is the common complaint from the team is, oh, all these metrics are available in customer infrastructure, so we don't have access to, or we are not allowed to pull up that information and or enter it here or use it. So
Yeah.
you had 20 pod teams. I'm just curious, how are they overcoming this problem?
Yeah, so to be honest, when we've encountered, even with some of our teams that are extremely regulated in terms of their clients, let's say financial industry tends to be one that is very fussy with the data that is communicated. Even in those cases, we found that the initial reaction of the team is to say we have no access to any of this data, but we've always found ways around to actually find that the data is available. And that when speaking to the client, they see value in tracking this data, and they will produce the data for us. They will allow us access to that data. So we've always been able to bridge those gaps, even though the initial reaction of the team has been to say we don't have this access. We found that tends not to be true, or at least 100% accurate. We've been able to overcome those things. At the end of the day, I think the difference is the structuring of the data and the usage that you're going to do with the data. A lot of the times, the teams may be tracking a lot of metrics, but they're not necessarily telling the story. They're not necessarily giving valuable information to the client that they see as part of this partnership useful and valuable. So a lot of the times it's about the analysis that we do of that data and how we use it more than the direct access to the data.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
So I just have one question. The platform that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Is this a third-party tool? Where are we hosting this?
No, so this is a platform that we're talking about. This is a platform that we're developing internally. This is a platform that we are hosting on a server that we are that we own at this point. So this is 100% internally developed. Right now, this is not open to be accessed by client. It is a closed beta. The reason for this closed beta is that the tool does not yet have the restriction and security requirements for clients to be able to access just their data, okay? So the closed beta is going to be launched with around 10 accounts, okay? Where we're going to be testing and using, not just testing, using it to get that testing out the door. With these 10 accounts, we're an average of anywhere between 1 and 3 pods per account, and we're going to be doing this for the first quarter of next year, starting January 8th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so let me show you a little bit this tool. Let me move this out of the way. All right, so when I log in, this is my landing page, and oh, I had actually a little video that will give you kind of a 2-minute thing. So let me put this full screen, and then we'll go to the live demo. right, so that's just a quick preview just so that you understand better what we're seeing. But as you can see, this is our landing page. In this case, this user belongs to 2 pods. So here's where they can see the information for their pod. So the pod has an avatar, it has its name, the number of members, what level this pod is at. The KPI health index is something that is under development. I'll touch on that briefly. Right now, this pod is ranked number 1, has recently moved up to that ranking, has currently 3,430 experience points, and these are some of the latest awards that it earned. So this is the pod space. Here you will have your personal and individual space. So this is me, my name, the number of experience points that I personally have, what's my personal motto, what do I identify with, and what are the latest awards that I've been able to receive. Down here in the middle, we can see the feed. You can see that you have 2 different formats. So this card type format, or this more detailed type format, is showing for those pods or those members that I am currently following. So here, for example, we can see different pods, and we can see that I'm following these 3 pods, but I am not following these other pods. For those pods that I am not following, I will see a much more reduced version or summarized version of what's been going on. I can always see the information for each pod, and I can also see the details of the award that they earned. For the pods that I'm following, I'll be able to see that information as well, but I'll be also able to see why they received this information. There we go, great work for Eugenia for collaboration, and I'll be able very soon, this is not up and running yet, but very soon to leave comments for anyone that I see on the feed. Here, there will always be some sort of top 10. So right now we're seeing best performing pods, but this is a random rotation. We will see highest number of awards. We will see best performing individuals, etc. I can go in and see the details of this pod, and this is what we're calling the maturity path. This maturity path shows, let's go to this one, how I've made it to this level of maturity. So my pod starts off, every new pod starts off right here. They start earning their badges, and they make their way up through the maturity path with the awards that they've been earning. At the same time, these pods are able to set goals, and with those goals, in this case, this pod has set a strategic goal for this trophy, and this goal will move them up the maturity path to this level. We can see the details of the goal that they have set. This is the original goal. It was a strategic goal. They gave that goal a name. They described why they're targeting it. They chose up to from 1 to 3 awards, and they set the time frame for that goal. Today, they can review how they did towards that goal because the 1 week has already expired. In this case, the team probably achieved that goal. They can describe what went well, what they can improve, and submit that goal. That will automatically trigger the request of, in this case, 1 badge, but up to 3 badges or trophies to the podification team automatically. I can also see the awards that this team has been earning and leave a comment and how they've been earned. We can see the details of their members. We can manage the members in and out of the team. And we can see the roles of each of the members. We can also see a very clear view of all the awards that they've accumulated over time. And coming soon is our KPI section. I can't show you live because again, it's work in progress right now, but we will be able to track in those 4 dimensions as I was mentioning. Each team will be able to define which KPIs they're tracking, set their baseline and targets, and in less than 2 minutes, which is our actual target per week, be able to update how they've been tracking those KPIs. 2 minutes per week, per sprint, per release, whatever that cadence is that the team is using. This should take no less than 2 minutes of time, and it will be able to generate reports and statistics and charts of how the team is tracking in these 4 dimensions, aggregating that to a portfolio level as well. At the same time, I can view all of the pods that are participating in the program. I can see the same information for any pod, regardless whether it's mine or someone else's. Like I mentioned, this is a closed beta, so all the information is public. As we move to open this up for direct access to client, that data will be restricted absolutely for the clients. We can do the same thing with our pod members. We can see the full list of people that are participating, and we can see for these people as well what are the awards that they've been receiving and why, and leave them comments. One very exciting part is the awards section, where we can see all the awards that are available to be collected, which ones I already have, and this user has all of them approved. Yes, okay, I will show you in a minute a different user. You can see the details of each award, how many points, what's the description, and in this case it was an award that my pod already received. So when did this pod receive it? I can request this award, for which pod I'm requesting it, and for what reasons, or why do I believe that this pod has earned this badge. And anyone can request this award, so all we ask is that people confirm that their team is aware that they're requesting it on behalf of the team, and then request this award. As this award is requested, the podification team will be able to see as an admin here which awards are pending approval, and if they so choose, so approve that award, or if it needs to be rejected, it will be rejected with a comment of why it has been rejected, and helping the team with some pointers on how to actually reach that award, because our goal is to be able to award the team as many badges and trophies as possible. There's also a very easy way to find the different awards that we have. You can search here by name, by category, by tags. These awards have different tags, so I think, yeah, if I were to search around quality, for example, it would filter any awards that are related to that. This is valid for personal awards, peer-to-peer badges, so these would be the individual awards, as well as all the pod awards, which would be the pod badges and the pod trophies. And we have these same views across the board for all of these different awards. Okay, am I leaving anything out? Is there any specific questions or flows that you would like me to walk you through? I'm happy to do that specifically for this group.
Hi, so I know you mentioned this was about the delivery world. So just if you could, I know, and the talent world is only for next year. So I'm assuming it's going to fit into the same environment, or is it going to be a separate page, or just want to just share some information about that? Thank you.
No, yeah, it's a good question. It's going to fit into the same environment. It will be part of the Game of Pods world, or universe as we're calling it, and it will all be included in one tool.
Okay, thanks.
What happens to when the resources get moved across pods? So how does the points, the matrix gets, or even the awards and trophies gets reassigned?
Yeah, great question. What this tracks, and so I've seen your question about badges and trophies. I'll get to that in just a minute on the chat. In terms of the history, anything that is individual awards, that doesn't change because the individual is one, and that they will carry with them no matter where they go. In terms of the pod awards, both pod badges and pod trophies, those are awarded to the pod. But there is a relationship between myself and the pod in terms of the time frame that I've been there. So during the time that I've been a part of the pod and the pod has earned those awards will also stay with me. So as I move to the next pod, we will be able to see that I earned 5 awards with pod A, and now I move to pod B, and I will start earning new awards with pod B. So you will be able to see my individual contributions across all the pods that I've been a part of.
Okay. And one follow-up question is, you showed I can request for award and somebody approves it. Now, who is that individual who approves that award?
Yes, right now it's the podification team that includes myself and a group of agile coaches. In the future, when we open this up to client, there will be the option to have the client involved in that approval process.
Okay, thank you.
Soma, you were asking about the difference between badges and trophies. Badges are, and I'll give you examples, badges are there to reward best practices or actions that the team do, and trophies are there to reward milestones achieved. So an example, we set at the center of Game of Pods and the pod model is the KPIs and really being able to track and measure those KPIs as a result of the team's output. So being able to set those KPIs and define those KPIs that we're going to track, that would be a badge because it's an action and a best practice that the team is implementing. The results of achieving the targets that the team set for themselves, so being able to improve, for example, my productivity or my quality by 10%, if that was my target, that is a milestone and that is a trophy. Is that answering the question? Yes. Okay.
You talked about a set of KPIs, right, which spread over, say, speed, quality, product impact, so on and so forth, right? Yes. Do you have a screen where the pod teams can choose to configure, say, within, say, for example, if I take autonomy as a dimension, right, within which I can choose to configure some set of metrics? And is there a mechanism to track it? Would you be able to show those screens as well?
Yeah,
I saw some of those fields where you mentioned about, say, 25% velocity improvement, etc.
Yes.
But my question is further drill down, right, in terms of within autonomy, or say, for example, say versus to ratio or something. Can I choose to configure some of those metrics, and is there a mechanism to track it?
Yes. So this is a section that is still under development. Within the section, as you can see, the dimensions are already here. You will be able to add your KPIs. In this case, this pod chose different criteria. So they want to focus on productivity, on predictability, on responsiveness. They chose these 3 KPIs to track. They're defining what their baseline is, their different targets, and they're defining the review cadence. I don't think this is working yet. This will also be visible in a chart so that you can see it. And you can do this for each of these dimensions. At the same time, you will be able to not only view what the targets are, but also track sprint by sprint. In this case, since that was the cadence, you will be able to update what your actual metrics were this sprint. So I would be able to go to a screen and just enter that this sprint we did 100 points, we did 85%, and whatever our cycle time was. That will be saved, and that in turn will produce the charts of how your pod is evolving. You're also able to define what the weight of each of these dimensions is for your project. They may not all have the same weight, depending on what your target or what your business goal is for that project. It may be that today your client has a business goal of a faster time to market, and then velocity, in this case we're seeing the split here at 25, velocity may need to take a higher percentage of the weight. But it may be that they're already out in the market, they're not so worried about the velocity, but they are worried about the quality. Where do we have quality here? And that is something that they want to be focusing on. And so this, in this case, this dimension might have a bigger weight, or you may have a lot of geographically distributed teams, and they're new and we're onboarding them, and maybe we want to pay closer attention to autonomy. So again, depending on what the business goal is at that point in time, the weight of these dimensions may change.
Okay, thank you. Just one more question. Do you also have an option, right? I mean, as part of the system that you're building as an ongoing proposal, do you also have an option to integrate this with some of the dashboard systems? For example, I saw something on coverage, right, from a quality perspective. So there could be other platforms that we are leveraging for automated unit testing, measuring the coverage, etc., right? So how is the feed of data to the system happening? Is this a manual entry, or do you also look forward integration with other systems?
Yeah, great question. So right now for this first launch and first version, no, there isn't an integration. Yes, that is part of our future, and I think I skipped that in our vision, but I'll go back for a minute. And here we have crowdsourcing and integration with other tools. We put here Jira as an example, but that could be GitHub, that could be any other tool. That is in our future roadmap, but not in the immediate one. It will not be ready for the closed beta nor the open beta that will follow after that. We're thinking in that pipeline more towards end of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And that may include as well integration with some of Cognizant's maybe existing internal tools as well, which we are evaluating.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you.
So let me ask some questions, Raja, here. When we have a team with a Scrum Master, and the Scrum Master feels that, you know, for my team, I want to reward them based on their behavior. For example, timeliness. And second is collaborative attitude, right? Or collaborative spirit.
Right.
And the third is problem solving ability. And says that, hey, these are the three key behavioral traits that are important to my team at this point of time. And if I'm able to appreciate the team on these aspects, obviously these are going to lead to higher productivity and quality, predictability, etc. Right? So is there a way we can customize those behavioral aspects into this?
I don't believe you need to customize them. Here's how this would work in your example. You have let me log in with a different user so I can show you the ability to set the goals. Okay. And I believe that Madison had a goal setting. Okay. No, this one is, okay, that's okay. We can still show it with this. Your team has the ability to set tactical goals and strategic goals. The tactical goals are focused on badges. The pod badges, you will find that there is a large number of badges that are focused on different things. And this I can show you here. Bear with me for a second and this will start making sense. Okay. So the badges, the pod badges have a logic behind them. And this logic has three different verticals, if you want, and they have a growth mindset of intensity of or complexity or maturity of the practices. On the one hand side, you will have everything related to agile practices from a process perspective. And then you will have development best practices, which include agile practice from a development perspective. And you also have a parallel vertical that is focusing on the pod model itself. So those KPIs, the cross-functionality of the teams, etc. As you go through these badges, you will see that you start with some basic things like any team has to be doing some sort of retrospective. They have to have a vision. They'll be doing some sort of demos and some version of stand-up, etc. This is kind of your 101. As you increase in that complexity, you will be defining things that are specific to the development framework that you may be using. So whether that's Scrum or Kanban or XP, and you will have badges that are specifically related to that. So in Scrum, you will have a badge for defining your sprints that will not exist in Kanban, for example. And then you can go on to scaled versions of Agile as well. The same logic applies for the development best practices. You will start with, for example, defining what your coding principles may be. You will have a versioning tool. You will have an onboarding process. You will be doing code reviews. That will be kind of your 101. You could increase in complexity. So if you were doing XP, for example, then you would be focusing on pair programming and TDD and so forth down the chain, including everything that the ICD pipeline. So from a team perspective, your number of badges in terms of best practices are there. And the way that this works is that you set for the team, let's say in your planning meeting, whether you're doing a planning, a grooming, or however you have your sprints set up, the team defines what we want to target this sprint. So for example, one of my teams today, they're working on improving their unit test coverage. Okay, so this is what we're going to track. This is our target, and we are going to select the badges that we believe we can achieve in the sprint to target that best practice that we want to improve. At the end of the sprint, in our retrospective, we will do a quick review and we'll say, did we achieve our goal, yes or no? Do we believe that we've earned this badge as a team? If yes, then we will request it. If no, then we can retarget that badge. Same thing with the trophies in terms of KPIs. At the same time, you have in your pool a resource of all of the individual awards, which are the personal badges and the peer-to-peer badges that completely align with the values that you want your team to operate by. So if you want them to achieve collaboration, then you have a number of badges both at the personal level and at the peer-to-peer level that reward individually every individual's collaboration within the group. So the way that this could work is that if someone, for example, is in the stand-up and my teammate helped unblock me yesterday, I myself can go and award that person, it doesn't even have to be a manager, a badge for helping me unblock. So this creates a culture of collaboration across the team. Another practice that is very often used is that in the retrospective, everyone says thank you to someone else for a specific thing that they did, and they select the badge that is appropriate for that. So between the badges that target the best practices, and these best practices usually are completely aligned with those values that you were wanting in the team, and combining that with the personal badges is how you're able to drive the team towards those goals. And like you said, if you're doing things right, then the result automatically is that increase in performance and quality, and that will automatically allow your team, or very easily allow your team, to keep earning trophies.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, it was a long answer, but I hope the example helped.
Yeah, it helped.
All right.
I had a question. Is it possible to isolate, the view as an account wise, or like, let's say if an account has multiple different lines of business and multiple parts within each lines of business, how do you, isolate the, reporting and how viewing metrics?
Yeah, that is part of the KPI section that is being developed. So those capabilities of having that portfolio view and being able to also export reports with that view in mind, that is part of that section that is under development. So today you don't have that possibility, but you will have in a month or two. We're currently focusing on 3 levels. So the pod level, a business unit or program level, and an account level.
All right. Also, another question, as part of the earlier onboarding process that we had on the recognized platform, we at that point we were only having cognizant folks getting onboarded. Now if there is a client people also who can get onboarded, how does that work? I mean, is there a NDA kind of stuff, or is it like as simple as just getting into the platform with the email ID?
Yeah, right now we're not onboarding anyone from a client side. Right now it's a closed beta, so it is internal only. So no client components. Once we have all the security and restricted access in place, then we will start opening this up to clients.
All right, thank you.
Soma, let me see. Does it add up to make my pod number 1? I'm not sure I'm understanding correctly your question, but let me try to address it. The maturity level of the pod is given by the sum of all the experience points that they earn. Every time they earn an award, be it a badge or a trophy, the pod earns experience points. The trophies will earn a larger number of experience points than the badges, obviously, because they are milestones that we're achieving. But the sum of all those experience points is what is determining the maturity level of the pod. And this is how we're able to compare 2 pods working on 2 different projects maybe, or with a completely different framework and completely different best practices. They can pick their own journey and define. It doesn't matter, one pod may be doing Kanban, the other one is doing extreme programming, one has a fully automated CI/CD pipeline, the other one is only halfway through, but they plan to stay at that level. The client doesn't want to move beyond that. They can still earn the same number of experience points from the badges and the trophies with their 2 completely separate journeys. And so the addition of the transforming or translating that into experience points, it's what gives us the uniformity across the board for different pods. Is that answering, did I address your question or did I misinterpret it, Soma? Okay.
Is there a way to specify core competencies required for a team in addition to the KPIs that you define? Like, the different functional technical areas that one has to be competent in, being part of a certain team, and then measuring how the team or the individuals fare against it. I mean, is that something of that sort?
I'm not sure I'm understanding correctly the question. Maybe you can give me an example and see if I...
So there was so basically, you want to identify who are the core members of a team, or how independent a team can be, or in the context of spawning more pods or similar pods with the team members. Yeah. So
thank you.
I think it falls into the autonomy area, but is there a way that you measure it with the tool?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, so like you said, it does fall into the autonomy category, and you would be able here to set your KPI for tracking the number of core members. That said, we do already have in the backlog a feature that is focusing on being able to surface as an individual that I am a core member, and being able to showcase that and automatically calculate then the statistics of core members per pod. So right now, it's a metric for STEP, it's a metric here, and it could still be a metric even without all of the other stuff that I mentioned, but it will also very soon be seen at the individual level, so that I can be actually proud that I'm a core member, and that can be visible across the team. In terms of what you were saying, the pod being mature enough to spin off new pods, which is what we call mitosis, there isn't a hard line of what that split should be. but that is defined by each team, right? For some teams, maybe 20% of core members is mature enough, and for some teams, it's more towards 40%. So that we don't hardline that, okay, you've reached this specific level and now you automatically have to split, but that is something that the team will be able to set as they're defining that KPI as well. Did that address?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. If there are more questions, feel free to ask them. In the meantime, let me show you right here what to expect next and of our timeline overall. So as I mentioned, we're going to start off with a closed beta that will have around 10 accounts. If you are interested in one of your pods, one or two of your pods participating in this closed beta, please reach out to Podification, and I'll get in the chat here. Okay. Can you type it in the chat for everyone? Podification@softvision.com. We are selecting the teams that can fit into these 10 accounts. We want to keep it to a significant but also reduced or contained number of users at this point. And as we are doing the closed beta testing of this, we will continue to develop some of the features that we were discussing related to that KPIs and portfolio, so that, and also some of the security restrictions, so that we can focus on getting ready for the open beta. So that we will do new demos and obviously invite more teams, internal and some selected clients that you will tell us who those clients may be. And the idea is to continue developing all through the year and into early next year to get that vision that I was telling you about ready for launch. Throughout every step of the way, we will be gathering feedback. We will be helping any of the teams that are onboarding with onboarding sessions, whether it's to the platform and or to the pod model. And we will be holding weekly open sessions to support the teams along the way as well. Any questions?
Ali, this is Dilip here. I was trying to speak previously also. So
yes, I do have one. This is Dilshad. So the timeline that you're showing now, is this, so I guess the question is, was the Game of Pods program itself or the concept itself run on a different platform earlier? And what you're showing here is the product roadmap, or is it all in the same, in the sense the program itself and the product that you're showing here is all the same timeline?
The timeline that I'm showing here is for the product that you've been seeing, okay? And the vision is how that product will evolve over this timeline. Game of Pods has been for all of this year running on a third-party tool that has very limited functionality. The functionality available is basically to send and receive awards. That is everything that that tool provides. So that is obviously not enabling the Game of Pods to be applied to the full of its potential, and for the teams to be able to be motivated and adding value to our clients through this tool. So the timeline that you see is for this new platform and in its evolution over time for the next year.
Cool, thank you.
And I thought there was someone else asking a question and simultaneously.
Hey, Ali, this is Dilip here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was just making a comment that the question before this, right, came from Vigils, was part of the Macy's team, and they've been going through the recognized platform, and the question was more related to the team assessment template that we have in order to identify what skills does the team member possess, and how does he view himself, how does the manager view himself what are the areas of improvement. So I think the question is more towards whether the platform is going to have a capability like that, where the assessment of the team members could be done.
Okay, so where you could assess the core members inside the platform.
Yes, I think Vijay's question is more towards that, the one before Dulshad.
Okay, so to that question, every feature that we think and put out, we always start with more of an MVP version of the feature and then grow that feature based on the feedback from our users. So initially, same like we said with the KPIs, we are going to start with this version, and we do have in the future a view to integrate with other tools. The first version will be the more simplified version of this. Same thing for the core members. The first version is to be able to track that metric and to identify people who are core members. Eventually, do we think that we can scale that to have the evaluation done inside there? Yes, absolutely. But that will be an agile roadmap that we will develop along the way based on the priorities that the users are telling us they need.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay. We've got 4 minutes left. If there are any questions, I'm here. If not, thank you everyone for joining. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to reach out with any additional questions, or if you would like to chat some more, happy to help. And I think in the group chat, you have the podification email. So just for a reminder, it's podification@softvision.com. So don't hesitate to reach out, and thanks for joining.
Ali, would the video of this be shared, the recording be shared with others?
Yes.
Or is it?
We can share this recording, and there's also a recording from a previous session that we did that can also be available. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.